Are you thinking about buying a house in the next few months or the next couple of years and thinking about how to buy and how not to buy or making any mistakes? Well, you've come to the right place. Hi, I'm Mike Patel with First Team Real Estate right here in Anaheim Hills. I'm going to talk about 5 tips you can use before you buy a house and maybe end up making a mistake in doing so. Because to be honest with you, a lot of people do make mistakes unintentionally, but they're out there. The tips I'm going to give you today are from my own experience. I've been in business for over 20 years. Plus, I read an article in the Forbes magazine. So these are combined tips and they are very valid tips. And one of the top 5 tips I can give you and share with you. So let's start with tip number 1. Mistake number 1 that most buyers make is that they do not pre-qualify, or in this market today, August 2020, they don't get an approval letter. It's very important that you talk to a lender, get an approval letter, and at least find out what you can afford. Can you afford a $500,000 house or $1 million house? So whether you're looking now or later, at least you are prepared. And if you need to adjust your credit card bills or increase your income, you're working ahead of time. So the first thing you need to do is talk to a lender, get a pre-approval letter or an approval letter these days, so you know exactly how much you can buy, so you can target that price range. And also the other reason you want to get an approval letter is, let's say you're looking for homes and you do find that perfect home that you like after looking at 10, 20, 30, 40 homes, and you write an offer and you don't have an approval letter, sellers won't even look at your offer. A lot of the buyer's agents and most buyer's agents won't even present your offer until you get the approval letter. So very critical, and the first step to do is talk to a lender so you're ready to buy and you know how much you can buy, how much you can afford, whether it's now or 2 years later. Mistake number 2 is that when you're buying a house, you rely too much on your friends and family. Now, it's very important that you get feedback and insight and advice from your parents or your uncles or your elder brothers or your friends who have bought these homes. Very important to get that advice. But when it comes to making that decision on that house that you want, and if you really like that house, then go ahead and make that decision despite what they say. And the best way to explain to you what I'm trying to say is, I'll give you an example. About 10 years ago, I was showing a house to this young couple. Very nice couple. They were referred to me. I showed them 10, 20 homes, and there was one house that they really liked. The gal, the niece, fell in love with this house and said, I want this house. So because the niece's uncle, or the uncle was going to give them some down payment, they had to show him the house and get an approval. So the next day, I show the house to the uncle with the young couple, and guess what? The uncle rejected the house totally. And the couple did not buy the house, and to this day, because I kept in touch with them, they regret not buying that house. The uncle wanted a house that he thought he wanted to stay. He's 60 years old, this is a young couple, 30 years old, and they had 2 different views of what kind of house they wanted. But since the uncle was giving the money, he wanted his choice of house, and it did not work out. So be careful when you take your advice. Buying a home is emotional. So if you're emotionally attached to the house or get attached to the house that you find, if it's in the location and if it's in your budget, go ahead and make the decision. Mistake number 3 that most buyers may make or do make is that they're waiting for that perfect house. We all want the best house, the house in the great location, in a great condition, or in a condition that you want if you're going to fix it. And to be honest with you, there is no perfect house. I've been doing this for 20, 30 years now. 20 years, not 30. And there is no perfect house. I was told one time when I was new in this market that even if you buy a land and build a perfect house, there is no such thing as a perfect house. Because you know what? It may be the best view location, best house that you build with the best architect, best designs, but your neighbors might be no good. They may have dogs that are noisy, or they may be doing something that you don't like. So that location becomes imperfect. So there is no perfect house. The key is, if the house meets your criteria, location, price, condition, etc., then go for the house and don't dwell on finding that perfect house, or you'll never find homes. I've seen some buyers, and when I was new, I've shown a buyer 100 homes, he could still not find a house. So there is no such thing as a perfect house. If you can find a house that's 8 or 9 out of 10, you're doing great. By the way, I've got 2 more tips, and I'm going to give you a bonus tip at the end of this video, so stick around. So let's go to tip number 4 or mistake number 4 that buyers make. And that tip is most of the buyers want to buy more house than they can chew on, or they want to buy more house than they can afford. What do I mean by that? I'll give you an example. When most people who go car shopping, and I've heard this from a car salesman because I've bought 10, 15 cars over the years. And what they always tell me is that most people come and buy and look at a house that's $50,000, $60,000 worth of car, but their budget is $30,000, $40,000. So same thing with the houses. When buyers want to buy a house, they want to buy the best house in the best location with a view or pool or whatever, but it may not be in your budget. What ends up happening is that you stretching your payment to meet the house that you really want rather than the house that you can really afford. And I'll give you an example of how a lender fits into this. I've had some buyers where they liked a house which was higher than what they could afford, so they actually got, against my quote advice, an interest-only loan. So let's say the payment with the principal and interest was $2,000 a month on a $500,000 house. Just to give you an example. What they did was, if they were only qualified for $1,700, $1,800 a month, they asked the lender to manipulate legally, not when I say manipulate is work on the numbers or the loan terms. So they got a interest-only loan where your payments actually drop, which is not a great idea, but they could afford that home now and they could buy it. So don't stretch things like that. Same thing with the down payment. If you short on the down payment and you're trying to qualify because you have to put 10, 15,000 more down payment, so you go borrow money from your friends or family or your parents, which is legal, lenders allow that. Try not to do that, because once you buy a house, you're already stretched out. Most first-time buyers are scared to buy a house. I remember when I first bought my condo for $120,000, I said to myself, oh my gosh, how will I afford the payment like this? This was way back. So you're stretching as it is when you buy a house, a typical home buyer, not all of them. And then when you stretch to buy more house, then you're really stretching your dollars. And also you want to leave some money aside, so after you buy a house, if there's an emergency, something breaks up and you have to fix something, or you have to buy appliances, or you have to buy furniture, so leave some money aside and don't use all the money into the house so you cash poor after close of escrow. So again, this is why talking to a lender is very critical. Buy with your means, don't stretch it unless you have to. So that was mistake number 4. And mistake number 5. This is not a very common mistake, but it does happen. So what happens is, let's say you bought a house, and once you're in escrow, what you don't want to do is don't get too excited and start buying furniture or appliances before you close escrow. And the reasons for that is, until you close escrow, you don't want to buy or charge anything on your credit cards. Of course, this is if you're buying with the credit card. If you're paying cash, it doesn't matter if you have the extra money. But if you're charging it or getting a loan on appliances or a remodel and you're pre-ordering these things before you close escrow, every time we close escrow, a few days before close of escrows, lenders will check your credit again. So if those charges comes up against in your credit card, then that reduces your debt ratio or increases your debt ratio, so you may not qualify for it. I've known a buyer in my office, and an agent was selling a house, and his buyer actually bought a car while in escrow because he thought, you know what, I'm starting a new life, I'm getting a new house, and I'm going to get a new car and start fresh. Guess what? He had to sell the car again within 4 days to qualify for that loan because he went over. So don't make a mistake of buying stuff if it's on a loan before you close escrow. So those were the 5 mistakes and tips that home buyers make. It may apply to you, it may not apply to you, but it applies to generally most of the new home buyers. So here's the bonus tip I was going to give you. The bonus tip is, a lot of the first-time buyers are starting out. I remember when I was buying a house, I had to borrow money. So if you're a first-time buyer and if somebody's going to help you with the down payment, whether it's your friends or family, your parents, or sometimes it's a grant from the government or the school or the quote police association, or if you're a first responders, there's grants out there. So before you open escrow, you want to make sure and verify that money is there. So let's say your friend is going to give you $10,000 when you buy a house. Have that in writing. Have a statement showing that he has the money, so that when you go into escrow, you don't have an issue. One of the examples I can give you right now just happened last week with one of the agents in my office, is that they sold a house to a Chinese buyer. And the buyer was coming from China, obviously, because he was buying for his son who's over here. And what happened was, at the time of close of escrow, the buyer, who was well qualified, could not transfer the down payment to in the United States in time. So that posed a big problem, and escrow canceled, and now they're waiting to have the money come through. So when it comes to the money that you're going to get, make sure you have it in place. Hopefully in your account if it's transferred, or keep it in your parents' account, but make sure you have a statement showing that and the money is verified. Hope that helps. I appreciate you watching this channel. I would appreciate also if you can subscribe to this channel. I'm going to be putting out videos every Thursday at 3 o'clock with some tips for buyers, sellers, and just general tips. And if you have any questions about buying or selling, feel free to contact me. Be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.